if you're wondering how low calorie is too low when dieting, make sure you don't go anywhere. Hey, this is Colin DeWay. If you want to master your metabolism and create forever results, start now by subscribing and click on that bell notification so you don't miss anything. Alright, I'll be the first to admit that I have warned against going really low calorie, especially at the start of a diet. But that doesn't mean you won't necessarily have to get to really low calories at some point to reach your goals. In fact, the more weight you have to lose and the more extreme your goals are, the more likely you are going to have to get pretty low calorie to get there. Chances are you've probably heard some random numbers being thrown around before, maybe it's 1200 calories, maybe it's 1000 calories, maybe it's don't go below your personal BMR. Personally, I don't necessarily agree with any of those things, but it just kind of depends on each individual. That being said, I will be giving some specific numbers later in this video, so make sure you stick around to the end. Right now though, I think it's important you understand what happens to your metabolism when you do go low calorie and the dangers of trying to starve yourself to get the weight off. One thing that's really important for you to know is that your metabolism is adaptive, so it will adapt to whatever you do. So if you're trying to lose weight and you starve yourself right away, certainly you're going to lose weight at a faster rate in the beginning. However, your body will adapt to this and it will make it almost impossible to continue to see results long term. So when you do this and the body adapts and you can no longer lose weight, since you're barely already even eating, you have no room to make adjustments to get fat loss going again. However, that being said, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've heard somebody say something along the lines of, I dieted hard for 12 weeks at 1000 calories and now I've destroyed my metabolism and it's hopeless for me to lose weight anymore. But that's not necessarily true. Yes, your metabolism will become suppressed from that dieting, and the more extreme you are with your calorie reduction, the more extreme that suppression will be. However, you can eat that low calorie without damaging your metabolism. It's not technically damage, it's just a suppression. And while this suppression isn't fun, it can be restored if you are diligent about doing a nice reverse diet and getting your calories back up slowly. And that's the real missing ingredient in most people's diet plan, the diet after the diet. That, my friend, is the real danger of a starvation diet. Not only does your metabolism adapt down, but there's also a lot of changes in hormones, such as ones from ghrelin and leptin, which basically tell you that you're never full and you're always hungry. And on top of that, how emotional and irritable it makes you, it makes for a real recipe for disaster for a lot of people. Which is why I want to caution you about being stubborn about continuing to diet, even if you're really not feeling it and having a hard time and your body is fighting you. Sometimes you're just better off putting an end to the diet and being okay with a new phase where you work on rough maintenance, maybe even being okay with gaining a little bit of weight back so you can come back later when you're in a better position metabolically to get the rest of the weight off. The truth is, very few people lose all the weight they want to lose in one weight loss attempt. The body is just too adaptive for that, especially if you have a longer history of dieting and your metabolism is already suppressed to begin with. But if you can avoid the constant gaining and losing of the same weight, you can keep yourself in a pretty good spot and see those long-term results. It doesn't mean you're weak, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Remember, it's just a normal physiological response to the dieting that puts you in this position. Remember, your body doesn't care about a flat stomach or how you look, it cares about survival. And if you go really low calorie, your body is going to defend against this to defend against starvation. Great for survival, not so great for fat loss. But you also have to realize this and understand when the body is talking to you that you have to fight it back and keep yourself from gaining all that weight back and undoing all your hard work. Now keep watching, because I'm going to give you some numbers I think you need to pay attention to as warning signs that calories are getting too low. But first, let's talk about what some of those warning signs are so you can be aware and careful about pushing things too far. Some of the warning signs are things like you're so tired that you can barely even function throughout the day, you're cold all the time, you're starving all the time and can't think about anything other than food. You find yourself really irritable, especially at things that normally wouldn't bother you. And especially if you find yourself binging a lot and just can't stick to your diet. The last thing you want to do if you're constantly overeating is slash your calories, because this is only going to make things worse and signal to your body even more to overeat and just make things terrible. Now these signs don't necessarily mean you have to stop dieting, but you definitely should be heeding warning at that point, and it might be time to look at some other strategies if you haven't, such as diet breaks and refeeds and things like that. Especially a good 2-week diet break can often make a world of a difference. But if you've already tried some of these things and you're still feeling this way, it's probably time to stop and start your reverse. But just please, I'm begging you, do not throw in the towel just because it's gotten too hard. Do not undo everything. And the yo-yo dieting cycle makes it so hard and absolutely destroys people. And I don't want to see that for you. Anyway, let's start talking about some numbers that you should be paying attention to as warnings that things are getting pretty low. It doesn't mean you can't necessarily go below these numbers, but it's definitely time to understand that hey, it's getting pretty serious and we need to pay attention here and proceed with caution. For me as a coach, if a man's getting down below about 40 to 45 grams of fat or a woman 30 to 35 grams of fat, this is where things are getting uncomfortably low. We need fat to survive, and they play critical roles in things like hormones and digestion. I also personally like to keep people at a minimum of 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. Of course, this isn't 100% necessary, but it's really going to help you in many ways, and that's for a topic for a different video. But the problem is, if you start getting your calories so low that eating that much protein makes it so you have almost no carbs or fats left to play with, that's another signal to pay close attention and possibly reevaluate things. As far as total calories go, there isn't necessarily a bottom limit, but remember, the body will always adapt to whatever you do, so there's some big danger in slashing calories super low right away, because again, you won't have any room to budge when fat loss stalls. So you want to eat as many calories as possible while seeing results. Otherwise, you'll surely lose weight pretty fast in the beginning, but that will stop and you'll have nowhere to go. Do not fall into the extreme weight loss trap that so many people fall for. And although I mentioned you can't really damage your metabolism, in talking with Dr. Joe Klemczewski, he did mention that if you eat about 500 calories or less and do it for months on end, then you can actually damage the cell, and that would be a problem. So getting down to about 500 calories is extremely low, and I wouldn't really want anybody to get that low anyways. Even for people with really stubborn metabolisms, I hardly ever get below about 800 to 1,000 calories, and that's in very rare instances, but sometimes people just need to go there. But really, if you need to get really low calorie, which sometimes you just have to do, it's probably okay. You just don't want to spend any more time there than you have to. And just to be super clear, I really don't recommend getting that low calorie very often. Sometimes though, you just have to do it, because some people just really do have a super slow metabolism, and even with a good long reverse diet, they just can't get their calories up because their genetics don't allow it to. So in some cases, it just is what it is, but at the same time, you have to be cautious. And this is why we can't just give out generic numbers, because everybody is different. Low calories is kind of a relative term, because for one person, what they might consider to be low calories might actually seem like high calories for another. But if you're low calorie for you and you just can't stick to the plan anymore, or if your body's totally stuck and you're just fighting too hard, do yourself a favor and don't spend extra time down there. Then start your reverse diet and focus on building your metabolism back up. Just pay attention to the warning signs, and as calories get lower, start thinking about a plan of action to get out when the time comes. Not sure how to reverse diet? No worries, just check out this video and I will walk you through step by step how to increase calories on a weekly basis to get your metabolism back up into a good place, and how long you should hold them before you diet again. I'll also give you a good explanation as to how reverse dieting works and why it works. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, and I will see you next time.